Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Perini. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to learn about ballot issue 2A. A little bit of information in the way of an introduction about me. I've lived in Woodland Park for over 20 years and I'm proud to call it home. Our granddaughter is a Woodland Park High School graduate and now a senior at UC Boulder. My wife is a special education high school teacher in the Springs and has served on the library board, among other groups, to enhance the quality of life in our wonderful town. Recently, I was asked to join a group of concerned parents, local business leaders, veterans, people who live in Teller County but cannot vote on this issue. It's a great group of community citizens to form the Woodland Park Schools Community Coalition, or the WPSCC, to support and keep crucial funding for our kids, teachers, and local schools today and tomorrow. I am the registered agent for the WPSCC, and to be clear, our coalition is separate and not affiliated with the school district, despite any social media posts you may have read. Our goal is to educate and inform Woodland Park City residents who are eligible to vote on ballot issue 2A with a no vote. You've seen the signs, the ads, and the banners, and maybe even the waving of great community citizens. However, we also wanted to add this forum to our efforts, again to educate and inform the community about this ballot issue. Group members and volunteers have walked our mountain town for the past couple of weekends to educate and inform residents. We appreciate each and every one who took the time to canvass our residents and the exchange of views which sometimes happened on the front lawn with regard to this important ballot issue. Some of you may have already voted. Others are here to learn and be educated before you vote, either with the ballot you received or in person. As a military veteran and longtime local business owner, I believe keeping the educational sales tax is critical to ensuring continual academic excellence for our kids' education. The ballot issue we are fighting for is about putting kids first. Let me be clear. It will hurt kids, teachers, and our community if this issue is not voted on properly. A no vote on 2A supports local students, teachers, and the community by continuing the city sales tax as is, which, by the way, Woodland Park voters approved in 2016. I was one of those. I, like others, don't normally vote for a sales tax, but this made sense to me at the time and still does today. Even investigator columnist Jimmy Singenberger earlier this week had a great headline on one of his columns, and I quote, "For once a school tax that works," end quote. He even had rationale and history on why this is the case. We have copies of his column at the registration table. A no vote on 2A is a vote not to strip current critical funds from the district. This year's voting ballot is lengthy, and this vital issue is on the last page. Thus, when you have seen our signs, our banners, and such, we have reminded voters of that. So voters who still have not cast your vote and are here tonight, please hang in there. The ballot issue itself can be confusing if you don't read it closely. So let me read it for you. Shall the City of Woodland Park's 1.09% sales tax, the proceeds of which are annually turned over to the Woodland Park School District, be repealed, where the effect of an A vote is to repeal the tax and the effect of a no vote is to continue the tax? Several compelling reasons as why we want you to vote no on 2A to continue the tax. During the Q&A session with the panel of experts, you will learn more. Number one, save teachers' jobs. The majority of the proceeds from this sales tax go directly toward paying teachers' salaries. Colorado is one of the lowest funded states in the country in terms of education, and Woodland Park is already on the lower side regarding starting salaries for teachers. Two, protect our students. Woodland Park School District has skyrocketed to a top 10% school district in the entire state of Colorado. This assessment announced by the Colorado Department of Education on the 2024 results are from the Colorado Measures of Academic Success, or CMAS scores. Also, more students outside Woodland Park attend district schools, just over 1,000 students, where only 39% of the students, according to the assessor's office, have city limit addresses. Our students and schools need this continued funding to keep our schools strong in performance at these recent award-winning levels. As of last month, we strengthened accountability. The ink was not even dry on the Interagency Accountability Agreement, or IGA, between the city and school district when the sales tax decision went to voters. Still, a new IGA was signed in September, allowing Woodland Park residents more fidelity on where the sales tax money goes. Here is where it goes, despite, again, the social media chatter that is not accurate. Post-secondary preparation courses, technology, staff salaries, facility maintenance and improvements, and providing funds to allow the Woodland Park School District to eliminate the district debt service mill levy existing on July 1, 2016. Now for a foot stomper. Despite, again, what you may have seen on social media, the sales tax does not fund consultant fees, attorney legal fees, administrators, salaries or benefits, food service, merchandise, furniture, research or studies, hosted community events, or other such expenditures. The IGA is very clear on where the sales tax funds can be applied. I invite you to read it on our website. Now for a little history. The sales tax was approved by a majority of Woodland Park voters in 2016. The sales tax initiative was a fresh idea for school funding then, and it's essential to keep our schools going down the continued road of success today and continue to put our kids first in 2024 and into the future. In the 2016 general election, I was here then, and as I said earlier, my wife and I voted for the 1.09% sales tax. The sales tax rate increased from 6.90 to 7.99. The vote for the new tax rate also resulted in a decrease of the property tax mill levy for commercial and residential property owners in the city limits by 6.7 mills. Currently, the sales tax revenue pays for that promised buy-down of the property tax at approximately $720,000 per year for the certificate of participation, which is secured by Summit Elementary School. Another key fact ready for this: tourists and visitors pay into the sales tax up to 33%. Oh my gosh, what a great way, what a novel way to fund our schools. Through tremendous hard work and dedication by teachers and students, the Woodland Park School District is currently ranked 18 out of 184 districts in the top 10% of the state. This is one of the highest rankings the district has ever earned. It is clear evidence that the sales tax is working. We direct your attention to a chart on our website which compares local school districts if interested. Additionally, when inflation is considered, Colorado funds students at 1989 rates. In the past 3 years, the district has made significant improvements by raising staff salaries, securing full-time qualified security guards within the schools, promoting open enrollment and school choice for all families, further strengthening the quality of education for our children, addressing several pressing and needed facility improvements, and keeping school-related activity and athletic fees to a minimum. The district needs this funding to maintain its top 10% spot in Colorado and continue to offer the high-quality education our kids deserve. Facilities need over $30 million in maintenance and repairs. Teachers deserve secure jobs and competitive salaries, and students deserve a quality education in Woodland Park. Strong schools attract new residents, support local businesses, and improve our economy. Strong schools mean a healthy, thriving community. Current residents win, as property values also trend alongside their local schools' academic achievements and growth. Let's put kids first. Now let me introduce the panel. Mick Bates, Woodland Park School District Board President. Dr. Quinn Petrone, lead architect regarding the 2016 ballot issue. Leanna Talley has played a key role in district finances, having served in several positions. We did extend an invitation to both the City of Woodland Park and the district to participate. However, both declined at the advice of their legal teams. So here's the panel process. This is the way we're going to conduct the interaction tonight. You all either had an opportunity to provide questions in advance via email or were provided a card to write your questions down tonight when you arrived. Our team is still passing cards out, I believe. If you want to have the question directed to a certain panel member, please add that to your card. I made the decision to do it this way to facilitate the evening by being able to answer more questions. Again, I intend to get as many questions to the panel as possible, and I do appreciate your understanding. So let's begin.
Which is the retirement benefit that's available for teachers. Then you would go into your middle school and high school where you actually have to break those salaries down into each educational area. So you would have your math teacher and their taxes and their benefits, and then you would have your science teacher, and on and on and on. And when you boil it down for the district, they have over 500 line items that capture salaries and benefits for just educators. And so it's very nuanced as to how the district would have to make the changes to be able to capture the granularity that the public was asking for. And so we worked back and forth quite a bit with this with Aaron Vasilati, is that correct? As to how we can build this. And a lot of effort went into it. I think it was very eye-opening, and it was finally agreed upon how to do this. Furthermore, the frequency of reporting was determined that the district would begin presenting monthly financials to posting them on their website and presenting them showing where the sales tax funding is being spent. That is going into effect starting in January. So January we'll begin presenting monthly financials, and then there will be a 6-month which would represent July of 2024 through December of 2024, that will also be presented at that same time. Really kind of boiling down into the salaries and then the other expenditures that are also part of it. What is quite interesting when we look at the frequency of reporting that was agreed upon through the district and the city, being monthly reporting starting in January, and that there's a 45-day window where that reporting has to be presented. So, end of January, you have until March 15th to post those results. It's actually far more aggressive than even the city itself is currently abiding by. So when we visit the city website, you can see right now that the last time that they've posted their financial statements is December of 2022. Their quarterly financial statements were last presented on December 31st, 2022, and their monthly statement of expenditures was last posted in March of 2024. And so the district has agreed to be held to a higher standard even than the city itself, and is committed to providing that transparency.
Thank you. Okay, next question. This question is specifically for Mr. Bates. As president of the school board, with 3 years left on your term, could you detail the plan for how the sales tax will be used or spent on facilities in the next few years? Thank you for that question.
Last year, we took some reserve monies out and put it towards facilities and updating things. The things had been kicked down the road for many years, decades. We went through and did an analysis of all of our buildings, and there were some substantial needs. There were air handling units or heat that wasn't working properly. It seemed overwhelming, things that just had been kicked down the road. So we took $2 million and put that in the capital fund for these repairs and some adjustments, some upkeep, some updating. We did that at that time. We've got $30 million worth of work that these buildings need. So we will continue to put what monies we can into those funds. But with every dime counts. If you take into account inflation, we're operating on about a 1989 budget. The Woodland Park School District is funded 42nd in all 50 states. We're at 42 for funding. So it is tight. And I feel like we've done a very good job with our monies. We also took some money out for teacher raises and for signing bonuses to keep our good educators here. So we will continue to do that as we are able, but without a doubt, the impact of losing this sales tax would be profound, because there's just there's not a lot of extra money with the sales tax, let alone were we to lose that. And something's going to have to give. I was accused by a city council person of saying that our kids and our teachers would be the most heavily impacted. And that city council person said, well, nice soundbite, but that's not acceptable. I was appalled by that comment. The bottom line is the two most important things to this district are the teachers and the kids. And that monies could be absorbed, the 1.09 sales tax would be absorbed into salaries immediately. I mean, the salaries are 80% of our budget. So that wasn't fair to say. I guess if there was a soundbite, it would have been the one coming from the council person. I think there was a lack of understanding there. But I kid you not, folks, this isn't a soundbite. It's going to have a profound impact on programs. But that aside, the students and the teachers will be the most heavily impacted. And what do you do after you've spent 2 years getting teacher salaries up about 16%? Then to turn around and go back and ask for a wage reduction, that's ludicrous. You want to talk about taking down a ship. I can't think of anything that would be much more disheartening than having to do something like that. So, in summary, this is a very important issue. The monies are needed. Woodland Park, along with other school districts, money is very tight, and we need every dollar that we can get our hands on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Not sure who this would go to. Feel free, any one of you. But if this tax goes away, what would financial reporting requirements look like? Doctor?
No.
Oh, okay.
So the CDE has, which is the Colorado Department of Education, has a series of rules around what is required to be reported on a district's on a district's website. So when you go to, for instance, the Woodland Park School District or Merit Academy's webpage, you can see on the face of that there is an icon that says financial transparency. You click on that icon and it takes you back into the page that has all of the financial data for the district. That is always required, and in there is the budget, and I don't actually know how many years back you have to post. I believe the district has 3 years posted on theirs currently, but that would still have to be required that you post your first budget, which is the one that's approved usually in May, June timeframe, and then you would have your revised budget that would also be posted, which comes out in January midway through the year, January. And then you also have financial statements that are audited financial statements are required to be posted. There are the data pipeline, which is the most significant level of granularity that you'll see for any district or school. What that is if you see it on the district website or on Merit Academy's website, it is an Excel spreadsheet that basically lists every single account number. Earlier I was talking about the salaries and benefits, how there's over 500 lines for those. So it presents every single line in the general ledger of the school district or school and the balances that were reported for that year. It's a requirement for CDE and it's out there. Oftentimes when I'm seeing people ask questions about there not being enough transparency, those numbers are available there in the data pipeline. You just have to know to open it and look at it. Pardon? Yeah, well, they're on the websites too of each of the schools. Yeah. So that would continue. That level of reporting would have to continue. What we would lose is the monthly reporting that the city and the district agreed upon through the IGA. So, of course, the district would no longer probably present that unless, I don't speak for the district, but it is quite a bit of extra work to be producing those statements, and if the tax is gone, then the reporting requirement goes with it.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that helps.
Okay. Some social media comments have said, vote yes, stop the tax, and then work out something better or different. When would the income, I think. When would the income to schools stop? I think that's what the person wanted. When would it stop? So I guess when would you stop getting the sales tax, and any estimates on how long a plan would take to implement, I guess, if the sales tax doesn't pass. We're hoping, and it's not a strategy, it will pass. But what's your thoughts there, Doctor?
I think one of the things that we hear throughout strategic planning and change management is hope is not a method. It's not a plan. However, it should, to a pass, and the sales tax be removed from the revenue stream and funding for the district and charter school. The sales tax would go through June of 2025, and so the last payment would probably be in July for those June receipts. And how would how would things look afterwards? I think everyone's starting to think about that. You have to have a plan, but it's not a pretty one, and so it's something that right now we're just waiting until November to see what happens.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So to speak a little bit about the funding impacts, so currently the sales tax brings in $3.2 million to the district on an annual basis. The first expense that is used to cover is the COP, and I actually was hoping that Gwen, that you could get into more about what exactly the COP is. Can I?
Yeah, there's a question here. If we lose this tax, how will the COP be paid?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not sure I have the answer to that quite yet, but I will think about it. So the COP is a certificate of participation. It was implemented in 2016 when the sales tax was passed. What it did was buy down a bond from 2003. That bond covered the expansion of the high school, some expansion at the middle school, expansion or updates and maintenance at the 3 elementary schools, and so the sales tax paid that bond, and it decreased in doing so the real estate taxes by 6.725 mils. The critical piece of that is that there is more than 10 years remaining on that COP. The collateral is Summit Elementary School, which is in Divide. They can't even vote on this. And it was a promise made between the districts and the voters that if the sales tax were passed, this property taxes would go down. And that's exactly what happened.
Okay, so the COP, as I mentioned, is the first payment that comes out of the $3.2 million. That is about $750,000 that is paid each year to pay down that COP off the top out of the sales tax dollars. If that sales tax was to go away, how would you pay for that? So looking at the budget that the district has put out for fiscal year 2025, which is our current year that we're in, the district put out a balanced budget this year. So there is a misconception that by consolidating schools, the district now has this surplus of funding. That is not patently the case, like that's patently false. There is no surplus. Those moves were made to be able to present a balanced budget. And so if you were to remove $3.2 million worth of funding, further cuts are needed. And you don't want to lose your school. You don't want to lose Summit Elementary, which is collateral for the COP. So those cuts have to happen. And looking at where they come from, there's many different areas where cuts can happen, but when you realize that a school is 80% of their budget is salaries and benefits, that's the first place that you're going to have to really attack to start to come up with the funding to continue to pay the COP. And so 30 teachers is the amount of teacher funding or teacher salaries and benefits that are covered through the sales tax, and it's going to have to be looked at very critically by the district and by Merit Academy also as to what cuts can be made to be able to not only afford the COP, but then the remaining sales tax funding that currently funds operations for both entities.
Go ahead and continue to write your questions. These are good, so don't be shy out there. If the no on 2A effort is not successful, what is the realistic timeline to get new replacement funding, and what's that source? I know we've probably covered that already, but somebody else has asked it. Let's see what else the panel has to say.
So historically in our area, taxes are filed and typically not approved. In 2003, the tax, the bond to make those facility expansions, and there was also a mill levy override, $1.1 million was approved for typically for salaries, but it's really for operations. In 2011, there was another bond question and another mill levy override question that was posed to the voters, and that failed. And so a group got together, a task force group, of which I was one, in 2012, to discuss what do we do? Because the recession has hit, enrollment has declined by over 700 students in the past 10 years. Buildings are still needing, even though 10 years later they've been updated and so forth. 2003, they still, you own a house, something always needs repaired. And so those things have come into play. And the group talked about closing a school. And that's when schools were at 60-70% capacity. They discussed a sales tax, and everyone said, and the task force, let me back up a little bit, the task force was made up of about 25 people representing various groups within the community. It was business members, parents, teachers, administrators, just you name it, community members, they were all represented in this task force. And so the discussion of sales tax came about, I think, from possibly the city manager, I can't recall initially who was the first one to discuss it. And the conclusion was, well, gosh, we can't even get a property tax passed because everyone is really concerned about property taxes up here. Back then, still are. How in the world will a sales tax pass? And so it was tabled. And then in 2015, things just continued to decline. Enrollment was in decline. Facilities continued to be in decline. We were limping along, as many districts in the state were, because of the decline in enrollment and because of the recession that it hit in 2009, that bubble. And so in 2015, the question then was, we need money. Where are we going to get the funding for these kids in these buildings? We're losing students. The decline is just, it's painful. And that's when, we were scrambling. And that summer, I actually said, okay, wait a minute. What happens if we can get a sales tax and decrease property taxes? Can we do that? And it was a discussion amongst the board. It was a discussion with the business manager. And initially, the business manager thought, I don't think that can happen. He went to Stiefel and Vectra, Zion Bank, where we were, and came back and said, actually, there might be something here. And so we rolled on it because we needed something that would alleviate the burden on our locals on property taxes and still would provide some sort of revenue where we could help with the facilities that needed to be fixed and give our teachers their fair share of increases, salary increases, which I think we're still trying to catch up, because as soon as the district makes a salary increase and everybody's like, yes, we're catching up, then D20 and D11 and Manitou all raise their salaries as well. So it's a catch-up game, but the gap is closing. And so to think now, what would happen if there was no sales tax that brought down property taxes, and how much of a burden it would be on our own locals to have an increased property tax, which, by the way, would have to be voted on. So now you have to take it back to the voters. And I don't know. I don't know that there is an answer to how will this get replaced. I think the folks who want a yes on 2A are closing their eyes and hoping that there can be some kind of a joint plan to replace this, and I don't believe that there is one. So from our perspective, what is here in the fact that the original request was greater transparency, and that has been agreed upon, that has been signed, it has not been given a chance to be enacted. That is the solution. And to go back, just because this is how the district and the city hear people, originally when this went on the ballot, or when the language was presented to go on the ballot in 2016, there was no list of where this funding was going. There was no discussion that it was going to go to salaries or innovative program or safety and security. That list was not on the question. And the constituents said, well, you know, wait a minute, let's have a list. Let's narrow it down. And so those pieces were included on the ballot language. And that's what the constituents voted on. And now the constituents and the city council and so forth were saying we need a second level of transparency. And yet again, the district said, great, let's plan that out, let's collaborate, let's figure it out. So through multiple addendums to the IGA, that has been agreed to.
Let me go back for just a moment. There was a question asked when the monies would run out, and it's next June. But for us to be fiscally responsible, if this ballot initiative doesn't go our way, we're going to have to start trimming right away. I mean, in 6 months, that money's is gone. But you'll see the belt tightening immediately were this to fail, because there just isn't any money. If that money's gone, there's nothing to replace it. So it would have an immediate impact were this to fail. Thank you.
So what about getting a grant? Can't you all get a grant to fund and fill up the gap? Talk to us about grants.
So there are many grants out there. We try frequently to get grants. The district actually has more grant funding than other districts our size, so it's not without attempt. There have been many times where the grant individuals say, well, you don't have this quite right, being we're too large, we're too small, we're not urban enough, we're not rural enough. All of those things play a factor. There are also grants that district leadership may or may not feel, or they do not feel as if it is something that they want to wade in. There are grants with sometimes hefty, sometimes not so hefty, strings attached. Some of it has to do with accounting, in which case their CFO may say, whoa, wait a minute, this is going to take a ton of reporting. We do not have a particular grant reporter or a grant manager on staff. I mean, I don't know that the district has ever had that. And it could be something that just politically, it might be politically to the left or to the right. And so grants have to be looked at least on my end, for just from my experiences looking through grants. There are plenty that are great, and we apply, and I'm speaking personally now, not necessarily for the district, but even when I was on the board with the district, there were tons of times when our administrators were applying for grants, and there were plenty of times where they said, we did not get that one. It's not for lack of effort. And there are also grants that we look at and say, not this one.
So the sales tax, again, covers first the COP, and then it covers operations. And when we look at operations, those are ongoing expenditures that happen year after year after year. When you look at grant funding, oftentimes grants are single year or a couple of years of funding only. And so it is very difficult to create a cohesive, forward-looking forecast when you know that your grant funding may or may not be renewed. And that's where having the sure thing of the city sales tax that repeats year after year without having to apply, hope you get awarded, hope the state, if it's a state grant, actually has funds to give that particular year for the grant. It's a very precarious place to place any organization into, to try to budget in that manner. And so that is an example of why looking at funding operations through grants is a logical fallacy.
So what do you say to someone who is pretty much convinced to vote yes instead of no? What would you tell that person or persons?
You know, this is one facet of it. We mentioned earlier that our schools are funded 42nd of 50 states. Well, you take that and then you consider the other fact that we're number 16 from the highest. We're down at number 16 for cost of living. So those two issues butt heads. I mean, there's only so much money to go around. It's expensive to live up here, and we are funded in the lower what, 20%. And something has got to give. And it was decided in 2016 that by implementing this sales tax, it worked well for everyone because 33% of that is paid by tourists. You'll talk to many people that will say, hey, I am not about taxes, but this is one tax that has fruit to show for that. And, it's a good solution to a big problem.
I'll add to that. So one of the things I would probably look at someone and say is, look at how the district is doing. And I don't mean district as in system. I mean district as in kids, teachers. Top 10% in the state. I've been here since 1998, and I do not ever recall hitting that mark. And they're ranked 18 out of 184 districts, which include BOCES. And football is going great. The last time I have seen a season like this has been 2003 when they were second in state. Soccer is fantastic. The athletic teams are doing phenomenal. These kids and these staff members are putting their heart and soul into this. And so look at them and say, I don't think you're worth it.
So in 2016, Governor Hickenlooper at the time was quoted saying, funding for public education will not improve anytime soon, urging district leaders to find local funding sources. And that is exactly what Woodland Park did, coincidentally, in that exact time period. We are one of 3 districts in the state that has this type of funding situation where there is a sales tax through the city that funds the schools. And I've heard some chatter in the community that school funding is better than ever from the state right now. There's a budget stabilization factor that was in play for schools, which reduced the amount of funding that was flowed through to the schools. That did, in fact, go away this year. So in fiscal year 25, there is no budget stabilization factor, which is again a negative. So funding did bump up this year. I attended a strategic school finance training that was put on by CDE school finance experts a couple of weeks ago, where they talked specifically about the fact that we need to get not used to the absence of a budget stabilization factor because it is likely coming back. And the reason for that is the state is working with their own budget deficits and shortfalls. Particularly was Medicaid funding. Right now the state Medicaid fund is significantly overspent, and they are looking to steal, essentially, borrow from the school finance bucket to fund Medicaid funding for the state, which thereby will push a reduction down onto school funding. And so when you look back to 8 years ago when they were talking about the need to push for local sources, that is still relevant, and that will be still a factor for us to contend with going into the future. And so You know, it would be such a shame to see us, one of the more progressive in terms of creative funding for our district, lose that when it's going to be needed, as it always has been.
Okay, I'm going to let the panel have their last comments each, and then we'll close this out. Again, panel, thank you very much for doing this tonight, but you have the next few minutes are yours. If anything else you want to say, we got a great vote coming up as we're putting kids first, and it's all hands on deck. So, Mick, last comments?
Well, I mean, if you take a look at what has taken place here in the last couple of years, we've got results. We're showing results, and they are above average. In the graph, we're accelerating. Our students are succeeding, and our purpose is to continue that growth. That's the whole objective here. As was said earlier, our athletics, which I think are a critical part of their education, they're engaged. They're busy doing positive things. These coaches are phenomenal mentors. So, you know, our athletics are reaching new heights, and I would really hate to see that shut off. And it's as simple as this. If we take an 11% cut in our income, it's going to have an effect on each and everything I just spoke of, plus many more. So I think every person, when they sit down with that ballot, needs to take a close look at it and see that 1.09% is minimal. And you know what, you guys? If we don't invest in our kids in this country more than we have in the past, our students in nationwide are doing math at 38% are doing it at grade level. Reading, they're doing 42% are reading at grade level. We've got to up those numbers. That's why I am sitting in here, and I know that's why these two are sitting here. We've got to do more for our kids, and we've got to teach them academics and get away from some of these other things that are taking their attention away from it. And folks, you're seeing results. You're seeing it in the SAT and CMAS scores. This is working, folks. Please don't cut off that funding. Vote no.
Thank you, Nick. Doctor?
I think I stated what I needed to state. My mind's kind of drawing a blank. That if you can look at these students who are working hard and the staff who are working hard and say, I don't believe you're worth it, oh yes. But if you can look at these folks and you can look at the way this district is moving as far as their achievements, and you want to support a district that is successful, and you want to support businesses who need a successful district in their community, then vote no. Because that is what we are here for. We are here to continue to improve the lives, not only of these children, some of whom are not even born yet, but of our community. And I know there's conflict, and I know there's some people that some other people don't like, but this is not a question about them. This is a question about the kids who are in our classes and the teachers who are teaching them. It's about the programs we're offering, not just athletics, but concurrent enrollment, college courses, CTE courses, hands-on courses. Since I moved here in 1998, everybody says we need more hands-on trades courses. Well, guess what? They're here now. And now we say, no, we don't want them anymore. Thank you very much. Goodbye. That's not what we need. We need a no on to A so we can keep all those programs for these kids.
Thank you, Doctor.
So when I look at 2A, I look at the impacts beyond schools. So I am a parent. I want to live somewhere where there are great schools for my kids to attend. And so I start thinking, well, if there are people like me out there, which I'm certain there are, and the schools lose funding, therefore impacting the quality of education, I don't think I want to live in a place like this. Therefore, I leave the area. I take my economic impacts to the community with me, right? So local business suffers, the real estate market suffers. It really is like having great schools is a cornerstone to having a strong community. And so it is more than just the schools. And so I think about that big picture. That's why, in my opinion, a no vote is very, very critical and important. I also, though, before I hand over my microphone, want to take this opportunity to talk a little bit more about some financial assertions that have been made on social media and try to create some clarity. Particularly, this is around transportation costs. There is a comment out there often that the district is paying for, or not the district, but the individual schools within the district, the traditional public schools, are paying for the busing costs, and Merit Academy is paying absolutely nothing. And so, let's get into the details on that just a little bit. Because I do think that some people are going to vote yes on this issue just out of pure dislike for the district, dislike for district leadership, and also, unfortunately, just a misunderstanding as to what is truly happening with funding. And the transportation is one that comes up again and again. So the way that funding works from the state of Colorado for declining enrollment districts, which Woodland Park has been a declining enrollment district since 2001, they take a 5-year rolling average of actuals to develop the head count that gets funded. So you look at 5 years past, you have this many students, this many, this many, this many, actual, average that is the amount of funding that you get for a district. The actual amount of students for this particular year, I'm talking about fiscal year 25, we're looking at 120 students less that the district actually has, that they are actually providing services to. So there is 117, 120, what did I say? 117, oh, it's right there. There are 117 students that are phantom students, so students don't actually exist, that the district is receiving funding for. That is, in this year, projected to be $1.3 million. That funding, that excess funding, is not allocated to Merit Academy. That funding, that excess funding, is retained by the district to fund central district services. One of those services being busing. There is no money out of pocket from the individual traditional schools to fund busing. It is paid for out of these phantom students and the funding therein. I hope that helps maybe create a little bit of understanding around the transportation piece, and that there is no shenanigans taking place.
Let me say something else. You know, I'm going to be real candid with all of you. There's an element of people in Woodland Park that think that taking this tax away will punish this school board, of which they really dislike this school board. And as they look at it, that is about the only avenue that they can see to take to punish us. And folks, the way you address those issues is at the ballot box. When you go elect your school board, that's when you can make a change. But to use this issue to come after the school board, folks, you start at the bottom and go up. And it's our kids and teachers that are going to be impacted by this, not the school board. It's going to make it more difficult for us. But do we want to make it more difficult for our kids? I don't think so. Thank you.
All right, a round of applause for our panel.
Wait.
Well, maybe not so quick.
Well, no, I think this is an important thing to note here, is that the school board is temporary. Sorry, Nick, but it will turn over, it will change. But the sales tax funding, that impact will last and last and last and last, regardless of who the school board is.
Right.
And
True.
so to have a short-sighted aspect on this will hurt for years and years. And I just want people to keep that in mind as well. Okay, I'm actually done now. Unless anyone has any questions. I really, truly want to answer questions.
And they'll be here in a little while, and in respect for the folks, we're going to go ahead and close this out, but you're going to be here for a minute. You see on the slide here, I have statistics from the Teller County clerk, and about 10-12% right now have already put their votes in. So there's still a bulk of people in Woodland Park, Teller County. I know that doesn't relate to this, but we still have a lot of people thinking about voting. So when you see on the slide there, tell your family, your friends, if you know anybody in Woodland Park that they can, you can get to, so they do the right thing and vote no. You can stay up to date on the issue. We have a website and Facebook and, like I said, banners and stuff. So there's a lot of information. You can talk to me personally if you want. We're looking for volunteers to stand out and wave. It's kind of fun if you haven't done that. We had music yesterday, and it got us through that hour. But you'll see us out on the day of voting here on Tuesday. And also, we're looking for folks for City Market. But this is how you can learn more and stay up to speed. Please continue to spread the word and personally ask people who reside in Woodland Park to do the right thing. Now, please go out and vote for our kids, our teachers, and our community. And thanks for coming. Good evening, everybody.